Yes, welcome. Let us begin. We're going to have a nice journey through the universe. The beautiful part of the universe, being in outer space, Deborah, is that it's calm and quiet and relaxing. Ask any astronaut.
You got to have a great view too. I think that's important.
Yes, especially a small one of planet Earth in the distance.
You bet. I like
Deborah,
the idea of the calm and the quiet. Like that's. I think there's way too much chaos in the world, and in order to really perhaps be more creative and innovative, we need to be calm and we need to be quiet, and we just kind of need to go inward and we need to reflect.
yes. Deborah, can I quickly splash something onto the screen to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about?
Sure, go ahead.
Us now, online live in space. What do you think of that? Do you think it's a good topic?
I think it's a good topic, and I think people are forgetting that visibility, of course, is one of the key elements of making a business grow. It's one of the key things for a leader to do is they have to be visible amongst their team members and their company, and they've really got to convey that message to their employees, convey the message to the clients, convey the message to the vendors and the suppliers, to the community as a whole.
Yes, and everyone has been given a big push in that direction to go online live with the pandemic. That over the last 2 years, people haven't had much of an option as to where to go to meet up with other people. Hence, so many people have become aware of and more comfortable appearing online. And the most common tool for that has been Zoom, live virtual events.
Hey Marino, had we known that, I think I would have bought shares in Zoom if it was available. So the online tech world becomes such a popular place that even now, during the issues that are happening globally, having real-time information is a real advantage. And being able to convey information, share information in real time is enormously valuable.
Yes, all this need to change the way we do things, change the way we present ourselves, change where we appear has become so popular now that many ways have been introduced to us to enable us to do these things, appear online anytime, anywhere. For example, we just mentioned Zoom. However, there are many other webinar services, and a prerequisite to these live virtual events is live video, like LinkedIn Live that we are now using, similar to YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and a few others.
Yeah, it's the visual component. So think of your population, your tribe, and how people like to learn or consume information. We're looking at the visual. They want to see visually, but there's lots of times that they've got their phones with them and their vision is distracted. Perhaps they're driving, but they want to listen to the content and information. So I think providing both options to them, which is the visual component with the auditory. Obviously, you got it when you're doing video, you got auditory with that. But you want to be able to have those elements in place so that people can consume the information, they can use it, they can gather the little tidbits of information, and then they can have a strategy for implementing that and making a difference in their own business, in their own company.
Yes, and the umbrella that covers this technology is called live streaming. And that is a good question to ask. Not everybody knows about live streaming. And there are many different variations of what live streaming is. Here is one that we should share. The streaming of video in real time over the internet that is not recorded or edited first. That's the beauty of it, that it's live. It's essentially you streaming video content out to many users at once. And the beauty of this, of doing this, one of the greatest benefits, which trumps many other techniques of presenting ourselves, except being on stage live, is that it adds to our credibility. It builds trust. For
And
example,
that's important, right? You need that trust element, and you need a way of conveying it. But what I love about the live thing is simply because it is unedited. If you're making mistakes, which is part of real life, it's part of conversation, it's part of presenting, sharing information, collaborating, discussion, it's authentic. So if people are going to know, like, and trust you, it has to be real and it has to be authentic, and not scripted, which I think is really important. I mean, people were wondering, hey, did Moreno and Deborah script this particular LinkedIn Live? And actually, we didn't today. So there are times that when we present, we actually have a format and an agenda. There's specific topics that we're talking about. This LinkedIn Live has no script to it. We decided to have a very spontaneous discussion, and we didn't plan out how it was going to happen. So, and I think that's important, that occasionally you need to do things that are completely unscripted.
you raised two important points, Deborah. The one is that we, and I add, no longer need to appear perfect. And I say that because just a few decades ago, before the internet, people were expected to come across perfect.
Yes.
For example, they wanted to see Hollywood actors. It was the norm then, because all that we were familiar with were movies, televisions, and there was a lot of preparation that went into preparing those programs, into creating, filming a film. We know how many people are involved and how much rehearsing goes into it and how many retakes there are, to create a high quality film. And the same for television as well, which still happens today to a large degree. When we see people on television live, well, there's a lot of planning that goes into that. For example, every person that appears on television in a studio needs to go through the makeup room to make them look good. And all the news anchors, well, they all look pretty good because they went through a lot of preparation before the camera turned on. Whereas now, because of the internet, because so many more people appear online, and there's this global need for authenticity, for genuineness, that people demand natural appearances and are more accepting of how people come across online, that anything really goes. There are so many videos online, social videos and marketing videos too, that people are a lot more forgiving than they've ever been before. So
you shared some really, really, really good points there. And I want to go back to what you had brought up about the movie industry and actors and this sense of perfection that has been portrayed as an expectation, whether we see it in magazines or we see it in ads. And then what happens is the average person comes up, views all those things, and says to themselves, I am not enough because I don't look like that, because I don't act like that, because I don't have the body or the figure like that, because I'm not groomed or dressed in a very specific way. That is a huge aspect right now, Moreno, which is the mindset that we have around our confidence level, our self-esteem, how we view ourselves, our self-image, whether we're thinking we are worthy enough or we're good enough to appear live, to share a message, to actually have a voice, to have an opinion or a point of view on something. This is perhaps one of the biggest factors that prevents people from speaking up, being on stage, even writing a book, sharing their message and their story, is they don't have that inner confidence that they're good enough and that they're worthy enough. And to know that there are a certain percentage of the population that will love what they do, and then there's going to be a certain percentage of the population that hates them, and that's perfectly okay. The idea is to love yourself enough, appreciate yourself enough to know that you deserve to be out there sharing your message, and there are going to be people who are going to listen and pay attention to that. So the essence of knowing that you are good enough, just the way that you are, to present your message, and there's going to be a lot of people out there applauding you simply because you made the effort. I think that's phenomenal.
Yes, it's all in our mind's eye. We think that we're not okay. However, though our audience, as you said, are very forgiving and they don't care as long as we come across genuine, authentic,
Right.
which is really all that they care about, and possibly how we can help them, how they can be helped, how we can help them ease their pain, resolve their issues, find a solution. It's all about give and take and less about appearances.
Yeah, and a lot of it too, Moreno, is speaking your truth as a person. What's true for you as an individual? What is your experience? Which comes back to the story. And I think being a keynote speaker and a trainer that I've been, on stages for years, what I have found that really weaves content and information and education beautifully together is the personal experiences, the stories that come together that convey a message of we were here before, inexperienced, made a lot of mistakes, and this is how we moved through it. This is our process, this is our journey, and this is where we're at now. So we speak from experience, we speak from a point of view of we offer great value to people. We're important. And this becomes a critical thing is that you need to know that your stories, our audience members, your stories, your life experience, your perspective on life is enormously valuable. And people want to hear those stories because, first of all, they're curious and they're genuinely interested because they can relate to your stories. They can go, I had a similar experience, which draws the audience in. So I think that's really important that whenever we're sharing messages, that we got to relate it to some sort of a story.
Yes, it's all about storytelling. People want to be entertained. Well, people want to be educated, informed, and entertained. And I think entertainment is probably the most important one. People's attention span is incredibly short. Don't you think so, Debbie?
I think so. I mean, if you're going to concentrate on something, that's sort of a trained skill that you need to have. But you're right, people are very much distracted. We're actually trained now on social media to scroll through our news feed and very quick snips of information. And so we can get caught up. For example, you go in there and you start scrolling, you could be on there for a half an hour or an hour, and the time just goes by like that, and you've wasted that time. So I think if you want to get your message across, it has to be in short snippets of information, which is what you and I recommend when we do these short marketing videos, that people take little bits of content and information that is really quickly consumed, really quickly conveyed for information.
Unfortunately, people are just too busy and they feel that they need to follow everything, and people suffer from the fear of missing out. They chase the silver bullet. For people to be less stressed and more at ease, there are two things that we need to do. One, we need to get organized. And the other is that we need to do planning, some simple planning. know what needs to be done and when in an organized environment, and then we will be more relaxed and at ease, less stressed.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point there, where we are distracted easily by these shiny objects, and we become really restless in that process of moving something. Maybe we don't get immediate results on a particular strategy or a marketing strategy or even a method of communication or interaction with somebody. So we quickly move and try a different strategy rather than persisting and maybe just doing some little minor tweaks. So we jump around. That plan you talk about, I can't tell you how important that plan is, because it really keeps our eyes on two things. Number one, on what's happening immediately right in front of us. And number two, when we project forward to this overall goal that we want to achieve, we want to make sure that what we're doing in the now, in this moment, is directly linked to that overall goal, so that we're staying focused, we're much more centered, we're calmer in our approach, going, okay, this is the goal. These are the various strategies and tactics that we're going to be using to move us closer to where we want to go, rather than getting completely distracted and getting thrown off center and doing a very roundabout approach that's going to take a lot of time, money, and energy. So, two factors: long-term goal, short-term focus, having that plan that you talked about, Moreno, very specifically laid out, and you work the plan.
We've been talking about appearing live in front of people. And from a business point of view, that is what we need to do to promote ourselves, so that people know that we exist, so people know who we are and what we do in terms of helping people. So unless we show ourselves, nobody knows we exist. Hence the reason why promotion is so very, very important in our private lives. Otherwise, we live alone on a small little island, or in business, so that our market knows who we are and where we are. And we talked about, well, we know the benefits of appearing on stage in front of an audience offline. Online, live streaming puts us in front of a live virtual audience. And I want to share a slide with you that points out the two main benefits of live streaming, which is this one here, the two tactics, which promotes us in two ways. And the two ways that it promotes us is, obviously, when we appear live online, we become better known. And when this happens over time, more than once, people start liking us. And over an even longer time, trust us. See, for people to get to know us, they need to see more than our ads and our website. They need to see our moves, hear our stories, and of course, to be liked, they need more than that from us. They need to hear things from us that are educational, provide them with information, and hopefully entertained. And it is when we entertain people, make people laugh, feel at ease, feel comfortable in our presence, that they start liking us. And as for credibility, being trusted, well, this is the ultimate goal. When people see that we are influential, that we are influencing other people in positive ways, and they can relate to that, that is when we build this very important trust element of our personality. The other benefit of live streaming is promotion number 2, highlighted there in yellow. It's the best way for us to differentiate ourselves from our competition, by being seen and heard more often in more places. Differentiating ourselves the traditional way from decades ago by being better and different from our competition no longer cuts it, because everyone or most people are as good as us, if not better, and provide the services and products that we provide, and maybe more than we do. Therefore, the best way to differentiate ourselves is to be seen and heard more often in more places than other people. Deborah.
Yeah, the know, like, trust factor is, we see it in the online world when we're speaking, presenting, when we're writing books, when we're writing articles, when we're on podcasts, when we're very visible and we're out there. But the idea of being known for who we are, our values, our character, our ethics, how we behave, how we serve and share information, um, those elements are very relevant in the one-to-one service providers, where we connect directly with a client or a prospect, a potential client, share services, share information, get them to the point that they know, like, and trust us, that they will go, here's my money. Yes, I want to do business with you. And I want to share a really brief story about just over the last couple of days, where I was having a conversation with an individual who was, first of all, incredibly talented and gifted, but he forgot his strengths. He forgot his gifts and his talents. He forgot that he was on his own, completely likable and knowledgeable in his area. And what he had done was, he was in a new area, brand new sort of area, that he wasn't as confident in terms of delivering the product and the service, but he was still good at it. And he made the mistake of bringing in a boss into a conversation with a prospect, and that boss was way too aggressive. And as a result, he lost the sale because he didn't trust himself, and he brought in somebody not knowing how that person would interact with that prospect, and would there be a real connection in terms of matched personalities, in being able to really serve the client in a really honest and authentic way. And what happened was, because he didn't know the boss really well, and he didn't trust himself in the process, knowing that it's important that in any sales transaction, part of that process is the liking part. They have to, number one, like the product and the service. They have to also like the delivery and how it's delivered, but they also have to like you as a person. Rarely we do business with somebody that we hate because we like the product and service. We'll often go look for another product or another service, and we want to interact with somebody that we really like. So he lost the business because of it. Does it mean that it's permanently lost? No. There's a recovery process that you can go through to build a relationship back up with the prospect. But again, that takes time and energy. So we have to be very, very careful who we bring into the fold when we're having discussions and conversations with prospects. That personality, that character, that likability factor, building the relationships with the clients that are in our business, is going to make or break the business as a whole. So that's just a little story I wanted to share with you.
That character that you're describing needs self-confidence,
right?
Which is very contagious. It's a requirement, and it's all a mindset which can be developed and will not be perfect the first time. It's developed over time. One has to practice and practice to get better. It's a given, it's inevitable, and one must never give up. And the most important point is to get started. And most people don't get started. And then there's a large group of people that when they encounter difficulties, unexpected pitfalls, they stop. It's a given that things don't go according to plan. One always needs an overall plan, with where you are and where your goal is, where you're going. Otherwise, one is just sailing in all different directions and not going anywhere.
Yeah, and the idea is, you and I had talked earlier before the program actually started about, hey, you have to start somewhere. And the mistake that people make is they go, I have to build up the courage and I got to build up the confidence first before I step in and I do something or before I go on live. And that is not how it works in real life. We all start baby steps. We all start making a number of mistakes through the process. So you have to be willing to take the risk, willing to make the mistakes and kind of fumble through initially. Preparation is always part of it. You and I always talk about how we need to practice, 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 which is key. But even if you practice, you're still going to be making mistakes. So, even Moreno, you and I this week, we did a webinar and things didn't go exactly as planned because um, the technology, we didn't record things quite in the right way. And so we didn't get the replay that we were hoping and wanting to have. But that happens to everybody. It happens to the very best of people in the industries where the technology doesn't serve them right. It falls down, it breaks. So what do? You just start over again, you do it again. It's just like, hey, people know that we make mistakes. They're way more forgiving now. That is part of the process. It's like, hey, it didn't work this week, but we'll do it next week. We'll see what happens.
Perhaps the most successful are the ones who have failed the most. And it's
Yeah.
a fact that you cannot succeed without making mistakes. It's part of the journey. It's a given.
Yeah.
And the best way, yes, I understand, and you probably agree with me, Deborah, that to get started with any worthwhile venture, it is daunting, it is difficult. However, it can be done. And there's an easy way to make that less painful, quicker, less stressful, less costly. And that is to do it with someone who has already been there, who has the experience, the know-how, like a mentor, a guide. That is a tremendous help. And then also during the journey to work side by side or work with somebody who is able to help you avoid the pitfalls, do things in a more streamlined, easier, more enjoyable manner will be worthwhile. Because the idea is that whatever
Yeah.
you do, you need to enjoy it. If you're frustrated and cry about it every day, very soon you're going to give up.
I loved everything what you said there. And one of the things, or a couple of things that come to mind here, when you were saying, you're surrounding yourself with people that know what they're doing, that actually have had the experience. So it actually shortens the gap, the timeline, and the energy that's expended to learn it all yourself, which nowadays in this really fast-paced world, we need to learn things quickly and we need to shorten that gap. So surrounding ourselves with the people that have done it before, holding your hands, that they've got your back, is really important. And you mentioned one other thing, sort of like they kind of lift you up with the humor with that, is when mistakes are made, rather than beating ourselves up because we go, oh, I made a mistake, now what do I do? And we're floundering and we're overwhelmed in the chaos. Those experts that we bring in that are coaching us and guiding us and mentoring us will lift us up and, like that, snap us out of that negative mindset and get us refocused on what we need to do so we can progress through the steps that much quicker. So having the guide and the mentors in the process, having your back is, I can't tell you how important it is. You've had them in your life, I've got them in my life. They make all the difference to be able to be fast forwarding and accelerating the progress.
Deborah, we're running out of fuel, literally, in our spaceship. And I do want to mention before we splash down that you and I can help with regard to presenting ourselves online, live streaming. So we will have more to say about this. Not now. As I said, we're running out of fuel. So I hope that you, Deborah, and everyone else attending have enjoyed this travel through space. We now need to say goodbye and we are going to land,
Have a
right?
great day, everyone.